You're listening to the IDEAfit Pro Show, the podcast that empowers fitness professionals to reach their highest potential personally and professionally. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting your fitness journey, you're in the right place. Each week, we bring you expert interviews, industry trends, and practical strategies to elevate your fitness career and enhance your impact on clients' lives. I'm your host, Amy Boone-Thompson. I'm the proud owner and CEO of IDEA and a certified fitness professional for over 30 years. Welcome to the IDEAfit Pro Show. I'm your host, Amy Boone-Thompson. Today's episode is a very special bonus conversation with an extraordinary leader whose impact extends far beyond the track, the classroom, and into communities across the nation. Dr. Judi Brown Clarke is an Olympian, educator, leader, and powerful advocate for health equity and access to physical activity for all. She currently serves in key leadership roles at Stony Brook University, and she's deeply involved with the National Fitness Foundation, helping to drive initiatives that bring movement, wellness, and opportunity to underserved communities. And this year, we are honored to celebrate her as the 2026 recipient of the IDEA Jack and Elaine LaLanne Award, recognizing individuals who use their platform to inspire and improve lives through fitness. Dr. Judi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am really excited about having this conversation with you today.
I am too, and I'm so excited to see you at IDEA World combined with NERSA, which is just perfect that you're the recipient this year because it brings both of your universes together, right? So we'll talk more about that in today's conversation and as we get to know you better. But you're new to our audience. You've been to an IDEA World. So yes. You had come to Elaine's 98th birthday jumping jack challenge. Do you want to comment about that experience?
First of all, it was an incredible experience just being around so many like-minded individuals that this is kind of part of their core mission for health and wellness and access to fitness and so on. So that in itself was great. But then to do the jumping jack challenge, to have set the world record for Elaine, to be on stage with Elaine and her incredible sharp mind and she and Jack, their incredible historic impact was just incredibly special.
It was a special moment, and to have yourself be there and a lot of people whose lives were really, they got inspired to be in this industry because of the work that Jack and Elaine did and all the years he was on television. And he actually was part of the National Fitness Foundation. So we'll touch on that in this conversation as well. Sure. But let's go way back to the beginning. Like, I want to know you've been an Olympian. Let's talk about that. And then let's talk about what brought you to academia, to being an educator, and now a national leader.
Yeah. So, my mother was a teacher, basically my entire life. And so education was always incredibly important to our family and core value to myself. So everything I did, there was always kind of a teaching and empowerment, insatiable thirst for learning, lifelong learning. So that was instilled in me for a very long age. And even the way that I trained to compete, I did it in a very scientific way. I was like looking at it through physics and the engineering of it and what is the biomechanics of it. So even when I ran, it still kind of had a very different approach as to how I hurdled in some of the other sports I was a part of. So if you look at kind of my life trajectory, you'll always see a large part of what I do that has education, and it's something around policy, something around health and wellness, and then the education. So those are 4 components of me that have to exist.
Your through lines. I love that you can look back and connect those dots.
Yes.
So let's talk about the Olympics. What were your events? What years were you competing? Share with the audience.
Yeah, so for specifically the Olympics, it was 1984 in Los Angeles. And again, it's coming back in 2028. And I ran the 400-meter hurdles. I got the silver medal. It was the first time that the 400-meter hurdles were a part of the Olympics. It was the first time for the 400-meter hurdles and for the marathon, because it was thought prior to that Olympics that the races were too extreme for women to compete. So it was really great to be a part of that barrier buster as to how people saw women in their physicality. So that was a really, I appreciate being part of that history. And it was just magical being in Los Angeles and being on the US soil. And it was the first time the Olympics were shown real time. Usually they were shown packaged and pre-recorded. So we had TV timeouts. And so like everybody watched real time when all of the Olympians and Paralympians were competing.
That's incredible. I didn't realize that was the first year in 84 women
84.
had, you know, it was considered too extreme. That's kind of hilarious, actually.
Exactly.
Okay, so I have a question. What do you do with your medal? Do you keep it like in a lockbox? Do you have it displayed in a case? Do you have to have extra insurance on your house? Like, what do you do with your medal?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so every time I tell this story, and it's very true, like everyone's mouth drops. So it is in my sock drawer.
Okay.
And it is like the ribbon is a little bit torn. It's all balled up. It has a million fingerprints on it. And for me personally, others it was maybe differently, is I felt like if it looked pristine, then it wasn't approachable. And I wanted people to be able to, like, everywhere I go and people ask me to bring my medal, I pass it around. And so like people have had an opportunity to touch it and hold it and be inspired by it, but it didn't feel like something that wasn't attainable. And so for me, it is an aspect of me and what I've done. It does, you know, and it certainly defines a lot of people understanding my competitiveness and my tenacity and resilience and so on. But what I want it to be is an inspiration, not an like a historical archive of a point in time where I was extremely fit and you know was very competitive. I wanted to be something like, how do you evolve, you know, an Olympic medal means, so that everyone can associate with that and connect to that. That's why it's in my sock drawer. It's never bigger than me. It's balled up. It's fraying at a seam, and it just feels just present.
Yeah. You know, I love that because it's symbolic of what the Olympics are to all of
Yeah.
us. It's a moment that we share together and we celebrate our athletes, but we celebrate unity as a world
Yes.
and as as you know, continents. So I love
Yes.
that you treat the medal, the award in that same way. Like this is for
Yes.
everybody. This is
Yes.
for all of us to believe in the spirit of the Olympics and what that brings together. Oh, that's so neat. Well, maybe one day I'll get to put my fingerprints on it too.
100%, 100%. Yes, yes.
So you talked about education kind of being one of your through lines and being raised with a mother who was an educator. At what point did you decide that your career would be in academia? And then how did you transition to these leadership roles that you have at Stony Brook?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, a lot of athletes have a real difficult time kind of on identity once they transition from being a competitive athlete into being whatever their profession is. And it's a hard transition. And so one of the things I learned really early on is I knew that there was very different components of me. And so when I was competing, I was working at a relief nursery for abused children from birth to 3. I was a certified foster parent, and we had foster kids. I was also on some statewide committees that were doing policy around, you know, every aspect around juvenile and family functioning for the state of Oregon. And all those things, it started to build out, you know, where I knew my other skills were, and a lot of, you know, the athletic skills were transferable in other contexts. So then the education again was kind of a core of who I am, and I realized, you know, that is like the foundation between education and relationships, which are built on trust. That's the foundation of every high performing organization, and it's also an internal empowerment platform that everyone stands on. Nobody can take information from you. They may take your rights, they may take access, whatever, but they can never take your ability to have critical thinking and your knowledge base and so on. So that is something that is, part of my responsibility. Like, we all have a purpose here on earth. So my responsibility is to ensure that people are empowered, that they have the critical thinking skills, that they are independent on getting the information they need to make good decisions. And so that just yielded itself, in very different ways to something that was very embedded in some kind of education and some kind of fairness policy aspect.
Mm. We've talked to a couple of other guests who I can't wait for you to meet at World. Ginny Grimsley talked about helping athletes transition into
Yeah.
roles and jobs, and know that, that didn't define them, as you said.
Right.
And then Siri Chalazi, she wrote a book about making work fair and about policy and about, especially in the fitness and wellness industry, equity and how important that is.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for you to meet them. And I
look forward to
heard parts of my conversations with them echoing in your thoughts. As you think about like what brought you to this place in time, and again, please tell what your role is at Stony Brook and what your work
Sure.
is today.
Yeah.
But I'm curious how mentorship also played a role in this journey, and how now you're giving back to others through mentorship.
Yeah, my role here at Stony Brook is I'm Vice President of Equity and Inclusion and Chief Health Equity Officer. So half my job is the university, and the other half of my job is all of our health sciences, we have 5 hospitals, and we have 230 ambulatory care centers. So that's all kind of my portfolio, and what makes it just kind of inform each other is, like, we think about education sometimes as just theory, not really practice. And, that's good information, but that's not the real world. And so, I stand in the space of, like, how do you take this information that may be taught within a particular context and make it usable tools that are for the better? Like, how do we provide better healthcare? Like, how do we take the things that we're learning in our research labs and translate that to public good, kitchen table issues, solving the questions that people are on their knees every night praying that somebody solves? That's my responsibility, and I'm one of many, as you can imagine. But that's where I love kind of standing in this space. And when I think about mentors, is seeing other people that have been standing in systems of power and standing in within policy and practice and accountability and accreditation and regulatory and laws and things like that. How do you bring all those things together to ensure that, like, everyone sees themselves, hears themselves, their voice, their perspective, their truth is a part of any kind of decision making, to make sure that whatever the outcome is fair and equitable.
Hmm. And so with your dual role at the university, you obviously have a role in all of the exercise sciences, but it sounds like you're touching nearly every department in the university through that work. Is that accurate?
That is absolutely accurate. And it's great because, like, my office is one of 2 that touch every aspect of the campus community.
Wow.
And so we look at it through policy, through our programs, through
Yeah.
our funding mechanisms, our corrective action, but all the way from our grounds crew as to who is in charge of making sure that, the infrastructure of the campus is beautiful and safe and accessible, all the way up to, your president, your vice president, your executive directors, and then, like, everything downstream. And there aren't a lot of people that make sure that that's bidirectional communication. Like, these aren't decisions that are just made in a bubble at the top, not informed by individuals downstream who have to actually implement those. And that's high performance, so that's where the athlete comes out of me. It's like,
Yeah.
how as an agency do we win? And we win where everyone feels that you're in a safe, equitable, and fair environment
Mm.
that you can bring your best self to every day.
Yeah. That is incredible. I know that's something I know that our audience will be really interested in hearing more about, because
Sure.
we're all trying to create safe and fair and
Yeah.
equitable fitness studios and clubs and businesses and environments. And it's something IDEA has been passionate about for a long time as well.
Yeah.
So I do hope that in your remarks at the conference,
Sure.
you're able to speak more about that. One of the connection, I should say, of how you were connected to IDEA was because of your work as chair of National Fitness Foundation.
Yes.
And I learned about the history, the rich history, that Jack LaLanne was actually part of setting up that
Yeah.
foundation many, many years ago. So let's talk about, for those who don't know what the National Fitness Foundation is, what is it? What is your mission? What is your role there? And how can we all get more involved?
Yeah, the National Fitness Foundation, I was really excited when I was able to join it. It is like one of the few nonprofit organizations for Congress. And so we are selected by people within the current administration, and we're also selected, by Congress individuals who nominate us. And our charge is like really to focus on the health and wellness of the nation, with a particular interest on our youth, our most vulnerable populations. And you heard me earlier say that part of my job as chief health equity officer is like that access to health, nutrition, mental health, physical health, and all the social determinants of health that impede your ability to be physically at your best. So as an organization, what I love about this is like, our charge is, how do we put systems in place for the nation? And of course, things are different regionally. They're different by state. They're different by different demographics, by education, by socioeconomics. There's so many things and factors of people that are changing weather patterns right now. And so, which is, a conversation that we haven't talked about before. And so when you think about some of these wildfires and you think about air
Yeah.
quality in individuals that have any kind of chronic upper respiratory, it's like they're profoundly impacted by just lack of quality air and all the things that impact a chronic exposure to tainted air. And just and those individuals, summer after summer after summer, breathing in this soup of toxicity, that all of a sudden you have these hot spots of 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 populations across all socioeconomics
Yeah.
that are sick and they have comorbidities. And how do we address that? And not to mention like our floods, our tornadoes. We have a failing infrastructure. So sometimes it's issues around clean water. Um, we
Hmm.
have a lot of places that don't have walkable communities. And so we tell kids that you should have 30 minutes of activity every day. Where? Where are they going?
Mhm.
Like there aren't, a lot of our parks have been co-opted for, affordable housing. And we're not saying that it's not an issue, but there's always kind of this balance of making sure that, all needs are at the table in decision making, because there's a balance of this. But when you start taking the inventory of green space away from communities, then it's very difficult for us to have, recreational sports, and playgrounds and all the things that, number one, bring community, that walkable with that mental health and wellness pieces to it. And so there's always a challenge, and the National Fitness Foundation is working both with legislators as well as community groups and organizations, nonprofit and for-profit. Like, how do we do this well with biometrics and technology and so on, so that everyone has what they need to be making decisions in the best interest of the health and wellness of their community and themselves.
Amazing work. There's so much there that you touched on that a lot of us take for granted. One,
Sure.
and when we think about equity and access,
Yeah.
a lot of communities don't have access to
Yeah.
fitness or to wellness, or like you said, walking paths or clean air, healthy foods. And
Yeah.
so do you work then with, would that be the US health minister? Is that the department that this falls under?
Yeah. So we're under Health and Human Services,
Okay.
and we But as you can hear, it's so collaborative, and there's a lot of partnerships. And again, like we're working with corporations, we're working with professional teams, with legislators, because, every state has some agenda around health and wellness that they're directing, federal or state dollars to, and there's certain programs that they may be resourcing, or there may even be report cards or dashboards that as a state they're requiring the municipalities to conform to. So every state has this as a core value, but they're all doing it very different. Like anything else, there's silos. Some are doing it well, some, have areas to, to improve. And then how do we network those, who's doing it well, and can that be scaled up and scaled out? Or is it something that's just doing well because regionally it does well, or you've got the right people that make it happen there, but it can't scale up. So, this all has a cost. We think about our healthcare costs, and we think about what does this mean for, workforce costs, because there's a cost to that. And then that's a vibrancy of our nation. That's a vibrancy of your community. A sick community is not vibrant. And so if people are compromised because of environmental conditions or access to the things that we just talked about, then how can you be an innovative and creative community when, basically your decision makers and your neighbors are navigating these chronic health issues, or access to things that help you think innovatively and creatively?
I had the privilege of attending the United Nations General Assembly in New York City last fall. And it was fascinating to me, first, because it was my first event and I was attending some side events. But the theme that kept coming up again and again was to focus on our youth, to listen to our youth. And they actually brought some youth from all around the world to talk about the issues that they're dealing with right now. And it was mental health rose to the very, very top of the conversation. But that had to do with people not feeling safe in their community or their environment, not having access to opportunities where they could move their body or be well or feel, again, safe, for lack of a better word, just so that they could think about anything else. But the reason I bring it up is, but also UNICEF announced for the first time, really, instead of focusing on poverty, they're focused on obesity as well, our youth, obesity in our youth. So maybe you could comment about any of the work that's being done in those two areas.
Yeah, we're doing a lot on both, the physical movement. So the President's Council, known working with or the National Fitness Foundation, working with the President's Council, and we knew about the president's, physical fitness and the patch. And one of the things that, we started looking at and having our conversations, like, they were binary. Like, people are like, oh, I got that patch. I remembered. I still have it. I love it. And then the other was a complete opposite. It's like, I felt judged. I felt like I didn't belong. Like, you got the patch or you didn't. And if you didn't, you felt less than. And so we had to really think about, how people's relationship with movement, with health and wellness, it can't be punitive. It can't be deficit based. It has to be a healthy relationship that doesn't feel like it is something that is absence of, I eat less. I can't do the things that I love to do. It's all done relative to what are healthy lifestyles. And so I think one of the things, around obesity is, first of all, access to unhealthy food, and unhealthy food is cheap.
Yep.
So when we think about obesity, we absolutely have to think about socioeconomics, safe nutritional food. And I know, like, when I'm going out and you're like, oh my goodness, I need to get more leafy. It used to be like when you bought meat when you're like, oh my goodness, look at the bill of my grocery bill because I bought meat. And now it's like you're the opposite. When you buy, healthy, fresh vegetables and fruit, your bill is high.
Yeah.
And farmers markets many times are only during, when the weather is warm. And so there's like certain times that you can have access to it, but not all the time. And we don't can anymore. We don't freeze anymore. People don't have their own personal gardens. Even, it used to be that people always had kind of a big planter with herbs and tomatoes and onions. Like we don't grow, we consume, but we don't think about a core value of, like, your grandparents all had a garden.
Mhm.
That's gone. So, like, how do we bring that back as a core value within our educational system? Like, you can grow solutions, like food is medicine. You can grow, you don't have green leafy vegetables, then you can go to the dollar store and get a bunch of pots, get some dirt, some seeds, and grow your solution. We've got to create really low cost, very high return on your efforts, solutions that they're very you get immediately gratification. So if I go and I cut some rosemary and I use it in my dinner, guess who's going to plant rosemary again? Or I get I cut my green onions because I'm using those green onions or chives. I'm going to plant that again because I see how that cycles into what I do every day.
Mhm.
So sometimes I think we give information out of context in these bites that, good to know, but what's that have to do with me? We have to be better storytellers, and we have to break down barriers around what people value and talk about it within their value system.
Mm.
And it addresses the obesity of food choices. It addresses the obesity of sedentary lifestyles that aren't judgment, but it's done in an asset base, that movement, small bites of movement. Like, do not have the closest parking space, use the stairs when you can. Just, hydration is a part of addressing, because I don't know if I'm thirsty or hungry. Sometimes as simple as that, as passing out water bottles, but then you have to have access to hydration stations. So it's all about meeting people where they are.
Yeah. I know a lot of our audience is going to be listening, and we do cover a lot of this subject matter in our Idea Fitness Journal and in our courses, and we're teaching our Fit Pros how they can support their communities with these initiatives. And so I wonder, from your perspective, how can our audience, these fitness professionals, club and studio owners and operators, how can they support the National Fitness Foundation's mission? How can they get involved, and how can they serve more populations in their own communities?
Yeah, reach out to us. It's www. It's or National Fitness Foundation. Actually, just Google us, National Fitness Foundation. Reach out to us. Talk about some of the things that you're doing, because we also like to highlight, promising and best practices. We love dashboards. So if you have any kind of dashboard, we're trying to kind of be a repository of information and things that are going well. We're looking at, soon we'll be kind of revitalizing the president's physical fitness, and I'm using the patch air quote with my fingers because it's been a tangible patch. But patch, listen, this is 2026, so a patch can be on an app, a patch can be a physical patch, a patch can be something that is used to some kind of a biometric. And so, like, what are some of the things that are working? And so what we want to do is, like, not just highlight some things, we want a repository of things that people, and create the searchable engine of things that really are helpful. I mean, because it may be a parent that reaches out, or it may be a school that reaches out, or it may be church youth group that reaches out. Like, can you give me some recommendations? So we don't always know what's working well. And then, listen, having kind of a group of individuals that are doing it well, those are thought leaders. And so when we start to really kind of do these focus groups, we can pull from that group to really figure out, what can we do scaled, and what recommendations should we make to Congress? What recommendations to the Health and Human Services that, maybe programmatic, maybe funding, maybe these grants, maybe, like, I know growing up for me is, I came from, humble beginnings. And so the Park and Rec program was my summer camp. We didn't have summer camps, never heard of it. So we would have individuals that were at the school, some were at the park and some were at the school, and they did, structured activities and helped us cook. So we were taking cooking classes, how to make things more healthy, how to switch out, even way back then, how to switch out things that you were putting extra sugar, using applesauce and honey, and some of the other ways in which you still had the flavor and the texture, but it was so it didn't feel deficit based. And so we also learned how to cook. And then we were doing things like, that's the first time I was on organized teams and playing things that were collective. And we did things that we learned STEM, it wasn't even STEAM then. We didn't have STEAM because it's the 60s. And we just learned in different professions and having people come and just kind of understanding, where we could be based on our interest. And I fully understand where there are things for fee, but we've got to have a balance of, where things aren't for fee and where things are for fee, and where it matters where you're physically having structured programs in person. And we learned, obviously, from COVID, we can do things remote. What are some of the things we can do remote? And then there may be somebody has a great program that anybody in the nation can join and do it, not just like, oh, I do it for my community. It's like, no, we have people joining in on the program when we do all over the world, all over the nation. So I think we have to, I call it stone soup. We need to kind of really like put a lot of things in the pot so like everybody's needs are met. And then it inspires people doing this work to incorporate some of those best practices into the things that they are doing, so that, it doesn't matter where you live. You're getting quality, incredible. And then that makes the case for federal and state funding. So it is a chicken and the egg kind of thing. Like, these things are working. We have outcomes, we've got dashboards, we've got testimony and so on. So it makes a compelling case when you ask for a particular bill or some kind of legislative, directive or some kind of funding, because you already have the evidence-based argument that it's not just a good idea, but we can actually show the outcomes.
But it works. So I'm hearing people can get involved, go to the website, find out what the current initiatives are. Also share your best practices. What are you doing that's working, whether it's local or whether it's global? What are the things that you think that our communities could benefit from, that we could pass along and pay forward and create more unity amongst ourselves as the educators and as the professionals, to thereby share some of these best practices and make more impact.
100%. We want to be kind of the convener of, there's a lot of other places that do this, so we're not taking anyone's place. We're just a yes and. And so, from what we can leverage from particularly where we're seated with Congress, then there may be some things that we may have some influence on, and working directly with the administration. There may be some things that we can bring to the attention of decision makers that others don't have access to.
Fantastic.
We work directly with the Trump administration.
Yeah. Which is why you're involved with the President's Council on Exercise. And so you're all working as a team.
Yes.
So all of this illustrates why you have been selected as the 2026 recipient of the IDEA Jack and Elaine LaLanne Award. And I want to say just a little bit about the award, and then I want to learn more about what this means for you. But this award is given, it is a lifetime achievement of sorts, but it's really given to individuals who are using their platform to inspire and reach and impact millions. And as I hear about the work that you're doing at National Fitness Foundation at Stony Brook University, I can see that absolutely you're touching millions of lives with your work and creating those ripples that are helping people universally to aspire to better health and fitness. So tell us, what does this recognition mean to you, and anything else that you're inspired by?
The lifetime, it's your body of work, and none of us do that. None of us do the work we do and this
to get rich.
Right, well, that's a fact, right? Yeah, that's a fact. But It does absolutely humble you when people notice. And, we would do it anyway. But, Jack and Elaine have an incredible, I mean, just as a naming of this, with a body of work of two legends. I feel it's like, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, like, everyone's like, oh, Fred was like a great dancer. Yeah, and Ginger did it backwards in heels. So
Yeah.
like the two, they wouldn't be each other without each other.
Mhm.
And the way in which they brought to everyone that had a television and everyone that was an earshot of their ears, the knowledge, the affirmation, the high energy of you can do this. This is not a privilege thing. This is your thing. These are your tools. These are your activities. This is for you. There's different levels of impact. So you can do the same workout, in different ways based on ability. I mean, people didn't think like that back when they were messaging this. And so it really changed the way that we provide information and we provide services in a thoughtful, inclusive way to like, who's your audience? Who are you talking to? And it was very clear who they were talking to. And so to win their award is huge. It's huge. And I can remember as a child watching him and Elaine would come on sometime and they're talking and things like, so to think of someone that was so iconic and to win an award that represented their legacy and that my legacy in any way, shape, or form was adjacent and parallel to that is profound to me. I am deeply humbled and affirmed. Like sometimes, you do things and, sometimes it's at your obituary that you realize like, oh, I really made a difference, so getting this kind of affirmation, and in the middle of still doing this is something that just has just been incredibly meaningful to me. And I am incredibly just humbled and appreciative.
And you're still forming your legacy. So your chapters aren't all written, but it's time to pause and celebrate the impact that you've already had. Today, the day we're recording this is actually Elaine's 100th birthday today. She is just such a testament. I got to spend the weekend with her she was inducted to the Hall of Fame for the industry. And I got to be there with her and celebrate. And we did a little interview because she's going to be announcing you. So you get a little video of Lala on stage. But I said, first of all, has anyone checked your birth certificate? Are you like really 100? Because she just keeps getting more vibrant and more animated as she ages. And I looked at some video of her from several Idea Worlds ago, and I was like, I feel like she's younger now than she was even then.
She's Benjamin Button, right? Right. Yeah. She is Benjamin Button.
Yes. But it's fascinating to me. We renamed the award to include Elaine's name. We did that 2 years ago. And Elaine is so humble and modest about it. And she was like, oh, you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. And I said, Elaine, let me just give you an example of your impact. I never knew Jack. I never met Jack. We give an award in his honor. I never met him, but I can tell you that our community and our fitness professionals have been so incredibly inspired by you and your work for the last 15 years that you're carrying on. Her whole theme is pass it on, pass it on, pass it on. Yes. She's carrying forward that work. And that's why with having you as the recipient, Judi, you are doing that as well through your work. You're paying it forward. You're passing it on. Your stage is allowing you to create massive impact that you're embracing and creating ripples. So we're thrilled to give you this honor on stage. And it's serendipitous that it's combined with NERSA, which is combining academia and Idea World this year.
And I love that, and thank you and everyone that included, because you heard that I'm equity and inclusion. And I think, particularly for women, I'll get on the soapbox for a moment. It's like, we're so integral to innovation and creativity and and these discoveries and yet just by historical context we don't always get the recognition of the things that we drove.
Yeah.
And so many times we talk about people emeritus versus in the presence of really making those impacts. And I think, also that also conditions us to minimize our impacts because it feels like a contribution to something, not a driver.
Mhm.
And I think, one of the most beautiful gifts that Elaine, and she told me I call her Lala, that
Yeah.
Lala has now is like she has been able to, and I think in 100 years, but for those last 15 years, like 85 of her years, that wasn't her truth. But these last 15 years, she realized that she was a driver.
Yeah.
What a switch. And so she is modeling kind of that old thinking that we're enablers. And it's like, no, no, you're not just an enabler. Yes, you absolutely enabled a lot. That take nothing away from that. But you also were a convener and you were the initiator.
Yep.
And so we don't always know the conversations that people have because usually the face becomes the person we associate with brilliance.
Mhm.
But we know there's a lot going on behind that. And so to be able to bring her in view and for her to, and you hear like, I mean, she has modeled for me, and many have, but she has absolutely modeled for me like the most beautiful way to age.
Yes.
And it's not happenstance. Her mind is that sharp. And I've taken nothing away from debilitating disease. But what she has modeled is a healthy lifestyle absolutely correlates to aging gracefully. And so I think that, and so it's what she says, it's what she does, but it's what she models. And that's not lost on me and it's not lost on many. That's also part of our platform. And yeah, I love that we focus on youth. That's cool. But there's a whole cycle of life, right? And there's a bend of light to the beginning of light. And so we cannot be more focused on our youth than we are on our elders. So I love within the realm of fitness and the way that that has become incredibly important and on my platform is this real cycle of that healthy aging and that independence of aging as well as that early intervention with youth is incredibly important to me.
Mm. You talked about a lot of Elaine's impact and Jack before that. She gathered us all around. And by the way, I've never seen anyone as loved as Jack and Elaine by anyone she comes in contact with. But she
Yes.
gathered us around this weekend. She pulled us all in close so she could speak with us. And she said, I want you all to know my two messages I'm imparting on my 100th birthday is number one, acceptance. She
Yes.
lost a daughter to an accident in her 20s. She's had tragedy. She's had ups and downs and highs and lows, and
Right.
she's outlived her husband, all these different things in her life. But she said, I accept that. And
Yes.
that allows me to next persevere. So those
Absolutely.
two things were what she wanted to impart with all of us. And actually, Keith Morrison showed up and we did an hour interview between the two of them. They're dear friends. And she shared that message with him. And he said, but Elaine, that's exactly how you live your life.
Yes.
And so she also said this, and then we'll move in more about you. But she said, I don't have any best friends in my life, because I give a piece of my heart to each of you, and all of you hold a really special place in my heart. And
Yes.
that was, and she looked us all in the eyes and held our hands, and you just,
Yes.
she's just such an endearing person. So for me, it's not just how she's modeled, all of that is she's
Yes.
modeling healthy living with grace, and she is passing forward all this knowledge, but it's who she is that
Yes.
me, I think, is the biggest example of how to have a life well lived.
And she's so authentic. And I think, like we think of authenticity as behavior. Authenticity is an energy. You know, it's an energy. And when you can give that energy away of authentic energy, you know, immediately you're like, I don't know why I connect with this person. Like, I don't know why I absolutely resonate, or I really like this person. Like, if I don't like anybody could have said what she said, but there's just something that's authentic about it that is, wrapped in her energy that she gives away. That just, it's something that your soul can embrace. And so it's a talent most people can't do,
Yeah.
but it is learned. It is learned, and it's learned. Like as you see people doing it, like most people will say, that start to do it is like they'll start talking about somebody that really meant a lot to them. Like my grandmother used to do it. Like, I had this neighbor that did it, or this like person that was able to do it in a way in which I want to be able to do that too. But it also is like an incredible maturity and 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 the ability and some of that resolve is you have to let go. And letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is getting permission to honor those things that absolutely are core and important to who you are. But it also allows you to honor those individuals and honor the work you do, because we just don't, there's so much that needs to be done. And each of us has to have that resilience and that tenacity to continue being part of that movement of hope and resilience and so on. And so her authentic energy that she gives is why most people, after they've talked to her, feel connected to her, because they are.
They are. I've never heard authenticity described that way. I love that though. Very profound in the way you've described that. And you're right. It's her interactions with you. It's her very being. It's not
Yeah.
that she's showing up in a certain way. She just
Yeah.
is. But
Just
but,
is.
yeah, but also that we can learn that.
Yes.
And, a lot of us work with clients every day, face to face to face. And to show up, we say, show up authentically, show up as you.
Yeah.
But that was really a profound message for all of us to take is, what is the feeling you're leaving someone with
Yes. Yeah.
when you've had your interaction, or you've taught your class, or you've finished your session?
Yeah.
I always say, when you're on stage, it's like, it's not about, oh, look at me. It's about, oh, look at you. Like the
Yeah.
best teachers and instructors,
Yeah.
you leave the class feeling better about yourself.
Yeah. 100%. And I think where we're talking right now, and I always think about like the mental health and wellness and and how fragile so many of us are, and how we're so incredibly unfair to ourselves, and we define ourselves by things that feel like disappointments, or things that have been done to us, or expectations we can't meet, and a way in which that we own that, and we cloak ourselves around that, or we default to that. And that's not life. That's not a well-lived life. You're living, but it's not a well-lived life. And so what you find is like most people that you're like, oh my gosh, like life was like really served you well. And it's like, hey, actually it hasn't. Right. I can probably match every
Yeah.
story of hurt and whatever that you have too. But it's, but there's a choice. And what I don't choose to do is to let that define me. And I don't choose to just stand next to that. What I choose to do is to keep doing, and using all the gifts I've been blessed with in a way in which I am showing people that there is another side of things that feel weighty and unfair. There's another side. You just have to figure out the path, but there's absolutely another side of this that it will serve you well and is productive and feels affirming while it may not right now. And so if you have faith and hope of something, your feet keep moving. If I
Yeah.
keep thinking like, okay, okay, I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm going to. It's like people that drive the wrong way, but they just keep driving. You're like, but you're going the wrong way. You're like, yeah, but I just feel like I'm going to see the right turn and I'm going to take it and get back on the road I need to go on. It's like, but there's a faith in that.
Yeah.
And so how do we replicate that? And how do we create that in a way in which points of your life where it really feels dark, it's called a signal in the noise for engineers. Like there's always a signal in the noise. So in all the things you can hear this signal in the noise that tells you there is something that is informative that's going to move you to a solution. So how do we create signals in the noise of life? And then how do we create the curiosity, the perpetual curiosity of I've got to figure out how I get there. Because I can know that, oh my gosh. And then I start thinking that other people are lucky because you're like, oh my goodness, a lot of people have gone through what you've gone through. It's like,
Right.
yeah, but they figured it out. I can't. So you have to be able to figure out with faith and hope that there is another side. And then you also have to have the curiosity of then how do I get there?
Then how do I get there? Well, I can't wait to present this award to you on stage in just a few weeks.
Thank
Everybody who's listening, you can be there too. Just register. Registration's still open. Dr. Clarke is going to be commenting on stage as well. So she's going to get a chance to elaborate on some of her important work and even some of these amazing thoughts that she shared with us today. So I just can't wait. And it's a true testament to the work that you're doing. You're so deserving. And I just can't wait to celebrate with you.
Thank you. And I can't wait to be there on stage with you and to celebrate with you and everyone else. And just, as a community of frontline responders, it's an affirmation. So I'm really looking forward to it. And again, I am very thankful and humble for this opportunity.
Oh, so amazing. Okay, before we let you go, I want everyone to get to know you a little bit better. So we're going to go into a little bit of rapid fire questions. So these are intended to be short. Whatever comes into your brain first, we will go with. So first, what is one of your daily habits?
I stretch every day. Before I get out of bed, I'm stretching. So core strength is really important to me. So I constantly stretch.
That's what Lala does. She does jackknives in her bed every morning.
Yep. And before I go to bed, I constantly stretch. Yeah.
Amazing. What is one book that has influenced you and why?
There's a book called Getting There and Staying There, and it's by a woman that I greatly admire named Priscilla Douglas. And what I love about it is it talks about, all the things that help you get to where you want to be. And there's a completely new set of skills that keep you there.
Oh.
And it's a really great book because I feel so many people that accomplish things and then they struggle once they're there because they don't realize that now the requirement is a completely different set of skills. Getting there and staying there.
Getting there and staying there. Okay.
Priscilla Douglas, yes.
Okay, perfect. We'll have to drop that in the show notes.
She's a friend of mine, so I adore her and I'm really appreciate her.
Ooh, fun fact. Okay, 2 more questions. What does fitness mean to you?
Fitness is empowerment, and fitness is a state of control and a way in which it allows you to be the best version of yourself.
So good. And lastly, one word that defines your personal mission.
My personal mission, I would say the one word is catalytic.
Ooh.
It's catalytic. It's really about, what are the things that allow things to happen, either happen in a productive way, be in a disruptive way, be something that sustains, but something that's synergistic and catalytic. That's 2 words. Sorry.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Those were really
Yeah.
juicy ones. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that concludes our rapid fire. But as we wrap up, is there anything that you want to share with this audience that we did not cover today, or just any bits of inspiration you want to leave them with?
No, the only other thing that I'll add is like I'm also chair of the National US Anti-Doping and for All Safe Sport, and it also looks at the educational piece of that. And so I just, try very hard, like, where can I use my level of expertise and influence to really make a difference? And so I say that to, the audience, like some of it is your profession, but, get on some of these boards and bring your incredible expertise to some of the other collectives that are making decisions. Your voice is needed. And so just be thinking about boards that are, they could be an international board, it could be a state board, it could also be a very small local board. Every time that you're part of a governance decision-making committee, it's like, has huge impact. So please, join boards, and your voices is so needed.
Mm. Thank you for being here today. We're so
Yeah.
appreciative. I can't wait to see you soon. And
Yes.
as we close, again, I want to thank you for joining, and to Dr. Judi Brown Clarke, thank you for your leadership, your vision, and the incredible work you're doing to expand access to health and fitness for communities across the country. And congrats again on being named the 2026 IDEA Jack and Elaine LaLanne Award recipient. We're excited to celebrate with you at IDEA World. It's not too late to join the party. Please go register for this event. We will see you there. And thank you for joining. This podcast is brought to you by IDEA Health and Fitness, where fitness is our business.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the IDEAfit Pro Show. If you did, we'd love for you to follow, share, and give us a 5-star rating. Be sure to explore IDEAfit's vast library of past episodes featuring insights from top experts and thought leaders across a variety of topics. There truly is something for everyone. IDEAfit Pro Show is part of the IDEAfit Podcast Network. A huge thank you to our entire team at IDEA Health and Fitness Association. Copyright 2025, all rights reserved. Reproduction without permission is prohibited.